Good morning, students. This video is for the students of class 9, subject science, chapter number 14, that is natural resources. It's your lecture number 5. Topics to be discussed in today's lecture are biogeochemical cycles. So, under biogeochemical cycles, we would be discussing about carbon cycle and oxygen cycle. So let's start with the first topic, that is carbon cycle. Carbon is found in various forms on the earth. Okay, it is found in various forms on this planet earth. So now the question arises, in which form is carbon found? Carbon is basically found in two forms. Number one, elemental form. Number two, combined form. So first is it occurs in elemental form such as diamond and graphite. Okay, so what are the examples where the carbon occurs in elemental form? It is diamond and graphite. Second is in the combined state, means in the combined form. It is found as carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, as carbonate and hydrogen carbonate salts in the various minerals, organic molecules such as carbohydrates, proteins, fats, etc. in the living beings. Okay, so carbon is found in two forms, that is elemental form and combined form. Now, there is one more interesting point to know, the endoskeleton and the exoskeleton. What do you mean by endoskeleton? Endo means inside and exo means outside. So, the endoskeleton and the exoskeleton or the various animals, they are also formed from carbonate salts. That is the combined form of carbon. Okay? Endoskeleton means the skeleton which is found inside the living body. And exoskeleton means the skeleton which is found outside the body of the living organisms. So, they are made up of carbonate salts. So what is carbon cycle basically? It is the circulation of carbon through different forms between biotic and abiotic components of the biosphere. Okay, the carbon is being circulated in various forms between the components of the biosphere. So that circulation of carbon is called as carbon cycle. So, what are the steps involved in carbon cycle? Basically, there are three steps involved in carbon cycle. What are those three steps? Number one is photosynthesis, number two is respiration, and number three is combustion. Okay, these three steps, they are involved in carbon cycle. So, what is the first step? That is photosynthesis, by which carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, it is fixed as glucose into living beings which contain chlorophyll. The glucose is then utilized to form other molecules and also for respiration to get energy by living beings. So what happens? This carbon, it is incorporated into life forms through the basic process of photosynthesis, okay, which is performed in the presence of sunlight by all the life forms that contain chlorophyll, right? So this process, it converts carbon dioxide from the atmosphere into glucose molecules. Okay, and then these glucose molecules are either converted into other substances or they are used to provide the energy for the synthesis of other biologically important molecules. So, this is the first step involved in carbon cycle, that is photosynthesis. Second step is respiration. You all are familiar with this word respiration, right? So this respiration by living beings in which glucose is broken down into carbon dioxide and water, and this carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere. Okay, during the respiration process, what happens? The glucose is broken down into carbon dioxide and water. And this carbon dioxide, it is being released into the atmosphere. So respiration is the second step involved in carbon cycle. So the third and the last step involved in carbon cycle is combustion. Okay, whenever the combustion of the fuels takes place, for heating, cooking, transportation, and various other industrial processes, they release carbon into the atmosphere. Okay, so carbon is being released into the atmosphere. So this is the third step, that is combustion. So are you clear with the three steps which are involved in carbon cycle? First is photosynthesis, second is respiration, third is combustion. So students, this is the diagram of carbon cycle. Carbon dioxide, it is present in the atmosphere, right? So this carbon dioxide which is present in the atmosphere, it is used by the plants in the process of photosynthesis. Okay, then these plants, they are eaten up by animals. Then these animals, they form inorganic carbonate shells. So this is the first point you can write down in the carbon cycle. Second point you can write that when plants and animals die, they form coal and petroleum. Okay, you can see that plants, they are forming coal, and animals, they are forming petroleum. So when they die, they form fossil fuels, that is coal and petroleum. This is the second point. Third point you can write down that the carbon dioxide which is present in the atmosphere, it is used by the aquatic or the marine organisms in the form of carbonates. Okay, and why they use? To make their shells. You might remember I discussed this point when I was discussing the topic the breath of air, where the oxygen is being used by the animals, the carbon dioxide is being used by the marine organisms to form carbonates in water, right? So this carbonates in water, that is actually the same thing. So it is made up of which substance? It is made up of limestone. Limestone, it is basically calcium carbonate. Okay, so this is about carbon cycle. This diagram is given in your NCERT book also. You can see from there also, and you have to draw this diagram in your notebook. Now moving ahead to our next cycle, that is oxygen cycle. Oxygen is a very abundant element present on our earth. Okay, it is found in abundant amount. Okay, so oxygen is found in both the forms, that is elemental form and combined form. So the first point is oxygen is found in the elemental form in the atmosphere to the extent of 21%. Okay, so the percentage of oxygen existing in the elemental form is 21%, that is in atmosphere. Second point is it also occurs in the combined form in the earth's crust and as well as in the air. Okay, in combined form it is existing where? In air and in earth's crust. Now in air, which form? That is carbon dioxide. Okay, and in the earth's crust it is found as oxides of most the metals and silicon, and it is also in carbonate, sulphate, nitrate and other minerals. Okay, so oxygen occurs in combined form as well as in elemental form, similarly to the carbon that was also occurring in both the forms. So Oxygen is also an essential component of most biological molecules like carbohydrates, proteins, nucleic acids and fats. Okay, all these biological molecules, whether it is carbohydrate, protein or fat, they contain oxygen element. So that's why oxygen is an essential component. So this oxygen cycle, it maintains the level of oxygen in the atmosphere. Now the question arises how? How is it maintaining the level of oxygen in the atmosphere? Oxygen from the atmosphere, it is used up in three processes. Okay, the oxygen which is present in atmosphere, that is 21% in amount, it is used in three processes. What are those three processes? Combustion, respiration and in the formation of oxides of nitrogen. Okay, these three are the processes where the oxygen is being used. And the only one process in which oxygen is returned to the atmosphere, that is photosynthesis. Okay, by photosynthesis, oxygen is returned back to the atmosphere. Only through this one major process, oxygen is being returned back. So this is the reason how the oxygen level is maintained in the atmosphere through this oxygen cycle. So are you clear about this oxygen cycle? Now, oxygen is necessary to all the life forms, but in some forms of life, especially bacteria, they are poisoned by elemental oxygen. Okay, you know that oxygen is an essential element for each and every living organism existing on this planet Earth. But in case of bacteria, the oxygen serves as poison for them. In fact, even in the process of nitrogen fixing by bacteria, it does not take place in the presence of oxygen. Means in the process of nitrogen fixation, bacteria are involved, right? So that process, it is not taking place in the presence of oxygen. Why? Because oxygen is poison for them. So this is an interesting point to note. You can highlight it in your notebook also. So this is oxygen cycle. You can see that atmospheric oxygen, that is O2, it is present in the atmosphere. It is used up in respiration process. Okay, and through photosynthesis, this oxygen is returned back into the atmosphere. Okay, so this is oxygen cycle. So today I have covered the oxygen cycle and carbon cycle. So what is your homework for today? You will have to answer the following questions. Question number 1 is, what are the two forms of oxygen found in the atmosphere? Question number 2 is, write a note on how forests influence the quality of our air, soil and water resources. Question number 3 is, list any three human activities which will lead to increase in carbon dioxide content of air. So these are the questions for your homework. Now students, I would be discussing the homework solutions of lecture number 4. Question number 1 was, what are the different states in which water is found during water cycle? So the answer is, during the water cycle, water is found in gaseous state as water vapors, in liquid state as rain, and in solid state as snow, hail or sleet. Okay, so this was the answer. Question number 2 was, name two biologically important compounds that contain both oxygen and nitrogen. Okay, so the answer is proteins and nucleic acids. Okay, so what are the examples of nucleic acids? That is DNA and RNA. DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid and RNA is ribonucleic acid. So the proteins and the nucleic acids, both of them contain oxygen as well as nitrogen. And they are also biologically important compounds. You might remember when I was teaching you about oxygen and nitrogen, I told you that they are related to biologically also. So the answer is proteins and nucleic acids. Question number 3 was write a short note on water cycle. Students, listen one thing. Whenever such kind of questions come, first of all, make a habit to write these answers in points. Okay, avoid writing in paragraph. So the answer is, it is the circulation of water between atmosphere, land and water bodies on the earth. Okay, now you will write about the steps. So the steps involved in the water cycle are evaporation, condensation, precipitation and infiltration. These are the steps which are involved in water cycle. Now you will explain each and every step in point. Okay. First of all, what is evaporation? It is the process in which the water from the oceans, rivers, lakes, canals, ponds, etc. they convert into water vapors. That is evaporation. Second is condensation. Condensation is the process in which water vapors in the air form tiny water droplets which join together to form bigger drops and finally the clouds. So this is the process of condensation. Third process or the third step involved in water cycle is precipitation. So the precipitation of the water droplets which is present in the clouds, they occur to produce rains. So this is the third step. Now the last step that is involved in water cycle, it is infiltration. Infiltration is the process in which rainwater seep into the soil, thus replenishing both groundwater and soil water. So this was the answer of question. Write a short note on water cycle. You will have to explain in detail. Do not write in brief. Thank you, class.